consequence. Now, the next speaker in this roundtable is also, to a certain extent, a partner in the project, Christopher Clowder, who is a director of the Alliance for Childhood, if I'm not mistaken. Chris, you are welcome to say your point of view and your proposals for the future here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by quoting a sentence from Damasio, the Portuguese neurologist. Very simple sentence, but one that has deep implications for everything we've been talking about today. He speaks about the fact the brain does not have a different area for cognitive development, does not have a different area for emotional development, and does not have a different area for social skills. It's all mixed up. And he says this: scientific knowledge on this issue is crystal clear. Cognitive, emotional, and social competence evolve hand in hand. Yeah? Cognitive, social, and emotional competence evolve hand in hand. In other words, we need a holistic picture of how we view the human being, whether they're a pupil, teacher, fellow parent, fellow citizen, whatever. We have to understand that in ourselves, these aspects go together. And when we're talking about training or education, we need to emphasize all three. Traditionally, education has emphasized one, the cognitive. And I think that's a bit of our struggle now, that we have to now embed in our work we do and how we work together as human beings, both the emotional and social skills. Lifelong learning depends on one capacity, the capacity to learn from life. And that involves all those three skills. How do we learn from life? Interestingly, children do. Children, out of the nature of childhood, learn from life. That's how they absorb the culture, the language, the mores, the way of behavior. They learn from life unconsciously. But as teachers, educators, adults, we now have to shift because we no longer do it unconsciously. We have to learn to do it consciously. We have to work to learn from life. And I think this is a key aspect of our work. If we want to bring about cultural change, we have to be able to ask the questions that enable us to learn from life, is what TiLL set out to do in one particular sphere. We have to be able to say from every sort of area that we touch upon in life, from other people, from our communities, from our institutions, from our work, what have I learned from this? What am I learning? And bring that to a level of consciousness in order that we can bring about positive change. But it's not something you can plan to do, whatever curricula or whatever forms you create. So I'm now going to read a poem, because art is also research. Let's make that clear. It's not just numbers and statistics and all the rest of it. Art is research into what it means to be human. So I'm going to read a poem now by Swedish Nobel Prize winner years back, Thomas Tranströmer. And it's been a poem that just sums it all up, better than I can. And it sums up everything we've been tackling today. And quite an extraordinary poem I've been living with for years. So if you bear with me for a minute or two. I only have time to read it once, unfortunately, so you have to listen carefully. It's called Romanesque Arches. Tourists have crowded into the hall, dark, of an enormous Romanesque church. Vault, opening, behind vault, and no perspective. A few candle flames flickered. An angel, whose face I couldn't see, embraced me, and his whisper went through my whole body. Don't be ashamed to be a human being. Be proud. Inside you, one vault opens, another opens endlessly. You will never be complete, and that's as it should be. Tears blinded me as we were herded out into the fiercely sunlit piazza, together with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Herr Tanaka and Signora Sabatini. Within each of them, vault after vault opened endlessly. The recognition of lifelong learning, not just in oneself, this endless capacity to learn, but in everyone else too. And that's what the recognition we need, whether we call them teachers or parents or children or whatever. That capacity of space, of potential, of possibility. And our duty to our fellow citizens is to ask the questions, to help them find it for themselves, to find those vaults within themselves, those spaces that are dark, but can be illuminated by a candle flame. And as we saw with Transströmer, this is an emotional reaction to the art. It's not just up here, it's in the heart. It speaks to the heart. This moment unexpected, and then we become fellow citizens, fellow colleagues in our endeavors and our work together to create a better world for our children. So the capacity to learn from life is what lifelong learning is. And then with our children, we have to help, and with our students and with our teacher training students, to find out within themselves, because teaching is learning. A teacher has to be authentic as a learner, not as just a knower, as a learner. Esther earlier spoke about Freire and his categorization of schools, and she spoke about banking education. But Freire had another category, problem creating schools. He said, they're the real schools, because they recognize the dignity of a human being to develop, to become beyond what they are now, to go on learning for life. And that recognizes a dignity. Banking education is not dignified. It's a transmission, knowledge, investment, output, input, numbers, yes, data. But problem posing education is what our school should be. Evolution never stops. We as human beings are always evolving. We sometimes think of evolution of taking, millennia, but it doesn't. It happens in a day. Because every day, as a human being, we're evolving. We're dealing with a new situation, a new bodily constitution, a new colleague, a new question in the classroom. If we can learn from life, that is evolution. And now our schools have to evolve too. The time has come, which many of us have been thinking of for decades. What is a school? What really is a school? Now we're faced, because of the crisis, the health crisis, with this real sense that something has to change with what we call school. I don't know the answers, but it's something we wrestle with, and we have to wrestle with it as a whole community, whether it's business, whether it's local fabrications, the environment, the geographical environment, the climate, the parents, the teachers. It needs us all to rethink this idea of what is a school. And we get away from the deficiency model that Malaguzzi pointed out in Reggio Emilia, the sense that we're always looking at what children can't do. We must look at what children and our students can do. This positive attitude to what it means to be a human being. And then we can bring the competencies of emotional, social, and cognitive element together and rethink what we mean by a school. It means enlarging the capacity of imagination. To be able to expand how we imagine what it means to be a human being. Because we're being channeled. And our past education channels us into a particular way of looking at ourselves. Now's the moment, a crisis moment, where if we want to go forward and not revert to a warehousing education system, we have to have the imagination and the courage to take that step forward. Could I read the poem again? Would you mind?
Do it. You have already, it's very inspired. We cannot stop inspiration. I'm sorry, it's against our principle.
Okay. Tourists have crowded into the half dark of the enormous Romanesque church. Vault opened behind vault and no perspective. A few candle flames flickered An angel whose face I couldn't see embraced me, and his whisper went through my whole body. Don't be ashamed to be a human being. Be proud. Inside you, one vault after another opens endlessly. You'll never be complete. And that is as it should be. Tears blinded me as we were herded out into the fiercely sunlit piazza, together with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Herr Tanaka, and Signora Sabatini. Within each of them, vault after vault opened endlessly. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It was very inspired and inspiring. I think we can take, you will never be complete, and this is how it should be as a motto for our teacher profession. And I think you raised very important thing that I would like to see in the future of this enterprise, the TiLL project and its follow-up.